The reproduction or theriogenealogy and breeding. This is one of my favorite topics, and unfortunately, I don't think we'll have time to go through it. So please watch this and ask for my playlist on reproduction and breeding because it is one of the most famous topics, and you will run into that in the equine world. Before we get started, another quiz on a breed. That is our Belgian. Breeding is actually very difficult. Horses have the lowest conception rate of all livestock, yet they can be very efficient breeders. If a band of horses, so one stallion, is breeding with all the females, but if you think about the ones that actually do produce a foal and carry a foal through full term, it is pretty low numbers, say 30 horses and maybe 5 of them full, which does mean their numbers are increasing, so that does make them efficient out there in the feral community or wild community. But when we're trying to breed for certain colors or certain aspects of a horse, it does make things very difficult, especially when we're trying to make our breeding season off of when they are naturally having their estrus cycle. So January is said to be every horse's birthday. This started from the racing industry, always wanting to breed in January. So now you have to set the mare's cycles different based on light, because when the days start getting longer, they go into their estrus cycle. So they are seasonally polyestrous, meaning that they have a natural season with longer light hours that they are receptive to being bred. This starts to occur and starts to cycle anywhere between 1 and 2 years of age. I have 15 months highlighted because that's the mid average, and if you were to see some of these on a test, I would say pick the most average one. So they come into their first heat, and it does depend on this depending on when they were bred. If they were born in January, 12 months from then would not be the natural time to have heat, but 15 months would be because that would be coming on to the spring. So hopefully that makes sense and you can critically think past that should you see it on a test question. However, you might not know when the horse was actually born. So some terms, take a look over these. Live cover is highlighted because it is required for all thoroughbreds. So we do not artificially inseminate thoroughbreds. We do not collect their semen and artificially implant it into the vagina of a mare. All right, so when can horses become receptive? They show signs, they relax their vulva, they do this thing called winking. They often become very vocal and urinate. So the gestation period is 11 months and their cycles happen so seasonally polyestrous. So they do have continual cycles, but only through a season. So about every 21 days, they will have a moment where they're in heat. We can determine this by looking on an ultrasound and determining how big the follicle is. So if somebody is wanting to breed their mare, they frequently will call out the veterinarian. They will go rectally to look at the follicles because we can't access the ovaries with an ultrasound probe, and they will see the size of it when it becomes big and black, and then maybe they can even see the corpus luteum. More to talk about this when we get into the reproduction part, but that is when they can artificially inseminate the mare. In preparation for breeding the mare, you might have to do a flush. This is because some things that can disturb the process will disrupt the metrium or endometrium, the inner lining. If they are prone to having a sunken in anus, which happens as they get older, they may need to have this Caslix procedure done to prevent fecal matter from falling into the vestibule and then going up into the vagina and causing maybe a miscarriage. So there are a lot of things that we do to try to make sure that the mare is in good condition to be bred. This procedure, though, does definitely have to be opened back up before foaling, because if not, when the foal comes in a diving out position, which is their front hooves first, through the vaginal wall, they could push up into the rectum by the force of contractions. And if we remember back to feedback, forces of contractions are a positive feedback. So once the signal happens, the uterus will continue to contract until that baby is pushed out, whether it becomes harmful for the mare or not. Okay, so now we have 11 months later a foal, and this video shows the production. So both of these videos are meant for older uh, audiences, and term for waxing up will be for the colostrum, because that is meaning that the foal is getting ready to be born. If you feel like you need to collect some, save it, freeze it, because the transfer of the antibodies in that colostrum are very important for the foal. So after the foal comes out, we follow the 1, 2, 3 rule. They should be standing within 1 hour, nursing within 2, and there are hormones and other things that attract them to be able to nurse, but we need to just leave them alone and let that happen. So as long as it's within 1 or 2 hours, and then the placenta needs to be passed within 3. That is very important. They cannot have a retained placenta. It will lead to things such as laminitis. Then we can draw blood from the foal to see how well did they get their colostrum. It's an IgG snap test. We can also take and look at the pH of the mare's milk to determine how close, or pH of the colostrum to determine how close it is that the mare is going to be foaling. Things we need to also do to take care of this is we need to dip the umbilical cord in chlorhexidine. We also need to watch out for the meconium, which is a very nasty first feces of the foal, until they start getting inoculated in their gut system. It's very thick and can cause impactions. If that happens, then we need to do a certain type of enema, but we have to be very careful of the types of enema that we use. There's this term called foal diarrhea, because they say that it's when the mare comes back into heat and just producing different hormones. There's lots of reasons for why this is. We always want to look at the placenta as veterinarians. So when we come out to do that IgG test, hopefully we have told our owners to put the placenta in a bucket of water. That way we can make sure to look at it and everything has been out. It is very fatal for a horse if that placenta gets retained. Moving on to the stallion. So they become ready to fertilize, and their reproductive age is close to the same as it is for the mares. So many people see a stallion, but I see a dangerous animal, and this is a very dangerous job. You have to be careful. Watch this video to see what type of behaviors this horse is showing. Finally, this is a video where they use a teaser mare, so that teaser mare will stimulate the stallion to be ready to mount the phantom, is what we call this mounting block, and then you have to be ready with your collection device. It does have to be the right temperature, and you do have to prepare the sperm bag with a amount of sugars that they can still eat while they're waiting to be sent or shipped off to another place. Finally, we will talk a little bit about male care, whether they're a stallion or a gelding. So they do tend to build up what we call a bean in the sheath, and sometimes the bean can build up over the opening of the penis, and that will cause blockage, or they won't be able to urinate properly. So sheath cleaning is a very big thing, quite often done when we're floating their teeth. And if we don't want to have stallions, we can have them castrated. This is the castrating product that is called the emasculator. And the next video is about the emasculation process. Finally, the fun stuff, why we breed. Well, of course, it's to produce a foal, but sometimes we like to work with the colors. So I do have a thing about breeding. There are certain genetic diseases that we have to hopefully test our animals and make sure they can't pass that on. But some of our base colors can be diluted out, and that is how we get some of our other fun colors like palominos. Well, I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you get to listen to more about breeding and read my notes. Thank you.